Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Schatar, Safira Collier. I am here with Super Livestreams TV. We have a very exciting panel today featuring Ada Babino with tips on funding. Now, before we get into the actual tips, I want to just tell you a bit about what's going on today. We're going to be talking about tips on funding, crowdfunding, communicating with investors, and other opportunities for strategic partnerships to promote your brand or product. And I'd also like to introduce the Super Livestreams TV founder, Maxie D. Collier. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro, dear. And so, Ada, we are so happy to have you here. So let me give a little backstory, you guys, before we pitch to Ada. So Ada and I have known each other for more than 2 decades as creative collaborators. Going on nearly 3 decades. And in that time, if there has been one person who I've turned to most consistently for when it comes to the idea of guerrilla funding or grassroots funding, for grants and things, it's Ada. And there's a backstory to that because the very first grant that I ever received for a film project was back in the early 90s when Ada said, Maxie, there's the Maryland Arts Council grant and the deadline's today and you need to get your project in, right? And so I rushed to fill out that form. I rushed to Baltimore, dropped it off, and forgot about it. And then about 6 months later, I went to my mailbox and they said, congratulations, you've received $5,000 from the Maryland Arts Council. That $5,000 became the seed capital for my feature film, Be More Hacks. I took a few $1,000s and went and bought a film camera, a motion picture film camera from Gary Price at BET. And that was funded directly from that grant. So thank you, Ada.
I didn't know that backstory.
That is accurate. That is what happened.
Well, you know what? It's so funny because, graduating from Howard, I started working in the basement of Haile Garima's basement because he was working on the film Sankofa then. And that's what exposed me to grants. And because everything was funded grants. And so that's how I got into, Commission of the Arts grants and just knowing everything. Because that was, you try to make a feature, especially, you want to tap into every potential source of funding there is. So that's how I got into really being on top of grants. But that was back in the day. I'm telling you, things have changed.
Well, so let's talk about that. And you guys, and what's important, this is part 1 of this conversation. And on Saturday, Ada's going to be bringing us some very special guests that she's going to tell you guys about. And we're going to continue and elaborate on this conversation even more. But let's talk about it, Ada. Let's talk about how funding for our independent projects has changed since back in the days. We didn't have crowdfunding services and we didn't have social media. What are some of the things that you had to do back in the days in order to raise money for your project? And as we look forward now, what are some of these tools you're using nowadays?
Well, I will say that I'm saying back in the day, my God, in the 80s, because I'm going to put a point on that. In the 80s, there were just so many types of funding available. I don't remember who was in the federal offices then, because it makes a difference who's in the federal office, who's in the local offices, because federal, you have grants like DC Commission, Arts and Humanities,
National Endowment of the Arts.
For the Arts. Those grants are like writing a damn thesis. There's so much involved in those grants. You usually have to get a grant writer. They really, I've applied for many of those and didn't get through. But there was also things like, like ITVS, which is still around, and PBS, and people organizations like that also had funding grants. And then there was the local level of grants that came through. Like you, I got a $5,000 grant to do my first film from DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. And when you are just low budget, filmmaker, $5,000 is like the world. You can do so much with $5,000. I was able to just do my entire film with that $5,000. And the way you can do that is I always think, okay, I don't start off thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I start off thinking, how can I do this? How can I make this happen? And that's with anything, with a film or with anything, with travel, with anything I want to do. How can I make this happen? So you got to have the vision for something to work toward. So when you're dealing with something like a measly $5,000, it's like, okay, write a script that's cut down on locations, you're cutting down on crew, you're having volunteers, you're having resources of people that are in the industry that you know that you can call. And you also want to say, you want also to have a minimal production time. Because, you know, with my $5,000, I shot on a weekend. Got my friends to cook the catering and the craft services. Called my BT crew and, you know, that I knew in the art department, in the camera department, to volunteer with me for a weekend. That's not going to take too much away from people's lives, but it also, you know, puts you on a time frame to get what you need to get done in that time frame. And so we were able to shoot a 30-minute film on the weekend. And then I got a $5,000 grant. I think a year later we finished it. So I mean, so that was it. And then there's things, you know, you can get to the point where you shoot it. You get to the point where, okay, if you edit a little bit of it, you can get more money to get more money. So it's really pulling together every piece of resource that you have in people, in capital, in logistics, and everything. All your resources you compile together to get what you need to get done. And, you know, I want to encourage filmmakers, especially, it's so possible. It is so possible. And it's all built around relationships. So you can start with the grants if they're available. But now you know, everything is tightened up. I mean, you can't even apply for, there's little bits and pieces of grants. So there's organizations that you really, as specifically independent filmmakers, really have to tap into. The National Black Programming Consortium, always in supportive of films. There's always grants available at places like that. And there's places that you have to attach yourself to that you have like minds or like visions. I mean, if you attach yourself to like Firelight Media, there's different organizations in your particular cities that are arts related or film related, or even if you're a business entrepreneur. You always have to tap into those people and those things that connect you to the ability of getting what you have to get done, your vision accomplished.
Absolutely. And today is part one of this 2-day panel. And I'm so excited about these topics because this is exactly the information that people want to know. And today we're covering everything from grants, crowdfunding campaigns, residencies, investors, partnerships, and resources. And this is an introduction. So again, we want to encourage you to take out your notebook and get the information today, and to also join us at the live panel on Saturday at 12 noon Pacific, in which we'll go in depth and talk with 2 additional speakers on the panel as well. So Ada, thank you so much for giving the information on the grants. And I know that that's still an option for some of the places. Yeah. Can you tell people about crowdfunding campaigns and your experience with those?
And also, there's a variant of grants that exist nowadays, Ada, that didn't exist when back in the day, and that's pitch competitions.
Oh, yes.
You know,
yes.
And we'll talk some more about that on Saturday and pull up some examples. There's a couple of things we'll talk about Saturday in depth a little bit more. We'll talk about pitch competitions. That's when people have these contests in order for you to pitch your idea for your project, and then you do a presentation and you have opportunity to win a grant. You know, and the thing that's important about these grants, unlike some of the other things we'll talk about later, is that grants, in most cases, you don't have to repay, or you don't have to give up equity in your project. Whereas by the time we start getting investors and other things in there, we have to start giving up equity for our projects. So yeah, let's talk about the crowdfunding, because again, another wonderful situation where we don't have to give up equity of our project.
Before we go into crowdfunding though, I do want to say that I want to finish up with grants. With grants, there are 2 types. There's individual grants and there's organizational grants. So if you're an individual, you get a grant, that's great. No pay back. You just have to do reporting at the end to your, or either, you know, put them in the credits. But there's also organizational grants. So if you're not a 501(c), if you're an individual and you're not able to get to apply for a grant because you don't have a nonprofit organization, you can get a fiscal sponsor. So there are organizations that just dedicate themselves to being fiscal sponsors. For instance, with the San Antonio Black International Film Festival for this year, we, you know, our nonprofit end that we can apply for grants through is through our fiscal sponsor, Fractured Atlas. And Fractured Atlas, they, you apply online, you submit what you're doing, and all the paperwork and stuff online, and they accept you, they act as your fiscal sponsor. So they take out a percentage of the grant. It's a minimal percentage that of the grant, but still that allows you to apply for bigger grants.
How do people find a fiscal? How would you recommend that someone go about choosing a fiscal sponsor? And do most are the arrangements of what they take? Is it pretty consistent? Is it vary? How does the arrangement work out typically?
Well, you can just Google. I just knew from just my experience of being an arts filmmaker that I just knew that fiscal sponsor specifically, that Fractured Atlas specifically deals with artists and entrepreneurs. So you'd have to Google and, best fiscal sponsor and just kind of, it can be word of mouth or Googling, or there may be somebody local in your organization that's a nonprofit that you can approach and ask, hey, do you do fiscal sponsorship? So it depends on where you are, who you're connected to, or just, going by referrals or research. But I have done research. So I knew about fiscal Fractured Atlas, but we're gonna try to also move into getting our own 501(c)(3), so we won't have to depend on anybody, and they won't take a percentage out. The reporting and all you have to do; those are things that you have to be accountable for. But the percentage may range from 3% to 10%. I mean, I think ours is 8%. I don't have the top of my head, but. If you get a $25,000 grant, that's like, nothing to be able to have somebody give them 5, 6, 8%, whatever of money that you can use towards your project. So it just
and so as an individual to approach a fiscal sponsor, can I do so as an individual? Do I need to be an LLC? Do I need to be a nonprofit?
You can do it as a sole proprietor. You're not a nonprofit. They're the nonprofit. Sole proprietor. You can have an LLC. You have to submit certain paperwork and check out the guidelines, but also there's local film commissions that have grants every year. So you got to check your local stuff. I mean, there's also national, which is, like I said, that's like writing a dissertation a lot of times, but you get you a grant writer and you get the grant writer percentage. I mean, there's ways to do what you need to do. Don't feel intimidated by what they're offering, because you can always find somebody that will do it for a percentage, just like the nonprofits take out a percentage. Go ahead.
So we're looking for grants at a county level, at a state level, at a federal level, and then at certain nonprofit initiatives or other organizations that may have grants and things out there.
Yeah, because it depends. Like if you're a filmmaker doing a film on AIDS, approach a nonprofit HIV organization. Maybe they want to partner with you. Maybe they'll be your fiscal sponsor. So it depends on the topic that you're working on that may connect with what you need to do to raise money for your particular project. There's ways. You just have to kind of creatively think of, okay, who would be a good fit for me and what I'm doing, and what you're projecting with your project.
And we definitely have to stage these things out more. So back in the day, we used to just make a budget for the whole project. Nowadays in these funding initiatives, it's little steps. You may make a budget for your trailer and get the trailer funded, and then use the trailer in order to raise additional money in order to shoot. And then you may get to a next stage to raise additional money for post-production, and then yet another stage for your distribution or your marketing and promotions.
That is so true. So you all talked about crowdfunding. So there's crowdfunding that came up. Was that in the early 90s, mid 90s? I'm trying to think when it really soared. I want to say 90s.
But then when sites like Indiegogo and Kickstarter came about in the late 2000s, they systemized. A lot of us were doing crowdfunding, selling T-shirts and products and things back in the day. We were essentially crowdfunding. But then the crowdfunding platforms, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, pioneered that idea of pulling together people who had projects with people who wanted to sponsor projects, and then and it's just blown up, and there's all sorts. Hey, dear, can we share the screen? It's
like a form of community funding. So you want to tap into the sources of people in your community, your church, your coworkers, your Facebook friends, your relatives, and you want to approach them for money. So you put together a project. So when you're doing something personal, I didn't think I could raise money for something personal. I was doing a project on my grandma, my grandmother, my grandparents. And it was like a legacy project for me to do, something that I wanted to do for my family. So I got to a certain stage. I mean, I got it shot free from a friend of mine who, Shawande T'Chawa, who was Howard friend, used to work for news. So he went on weekend with me to Louisiana and we shot. So that sat for 50 million years. I say about 15 years or 20 years in a box, the tapes. Wow. And then when I went to grad school, I pulled it back out so that could be my thesis project. So I got to a point where I could edit it and put it in order the way I wanted it to, but I needed more money to finish it, to pass it off to an editor that really knew how to edit well, to do the sound mixing and all that. So I tried it. I mean, Indiegogo, what I liked about Indiegogo is they have two plans, either fixed or flexible. Yes. So if it's fixed, it's like Kickstarter. If you don't raise it, you don't get it. Like if you set a goal of 15,000 and you don't get that 15,000, then you don't get anything. So that's a Kickstarter model. Indiegogo, you have an option. So I did the flexible. So I raised what I wanted to, I said, I forget what I wanted to raise. I think I wanted
7,000.
Okay. So I wanted to raise 7,000. So whatever I didn't raise, I still got the money. So that allowed me to finish my project. And it amazed me because it's like people connected with my grandmother, and it was like they took it upon themselves to attach themselves to support this project. It may be because of me, it may be because of the project. I don't know. You have to really work at these crowdfunding campaigns. You got to be on it like every day, putting out new information, sending people stuff, just to keep them like okay, I'll donate. And then you also put together packages where you offer people stuff. I think I had offers, beignet bites, Louisiana hot sauce. So I put together little packages. So if you donated $50, you get this. If you donated $100, you get this. And so afterwards, after the campaign's over, you got to do what you say. You got to send the people what you said you send them. So it was a really good experience. Once it was done, I premiered it in different places. And like I said, it amazes me the way people connected with my personal family. It was great. So that's one thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Out of these 109 backers, how many would you say you knew?
I would say out of the 109, I probably knew 100. I mean, no, probably about 90. Okay. 90. I know a lot of folks, and the other thing, people pass it on to their people, and hey, support my friend's project, and so yeah. But I knew a lot of people. This has been a while, so wow, it's good to see that. So out of so Kickstarter is like the number one. I mean, that's like for filmmakers, techies, inventors, and entrepreneurs. Very popular. Again, you get nothing back if you don't raise your fund. Then there's Indiegogo. There's things like GoFundMe, which is based on service-based causes. And then causes.com, Circle Up, Lending Club. There's all these different types. You got to kind of go and choose which one works for you, and which one goes toward what you need. Like if you're raising funding for political or cultural or advocacy, causes.com may be your thing. So yeah. Those are great options where you can connect one-on-one with the people that you know in your village, in your circle. And so,
if you're using WordPress, there's a plugin called Give that is a free plugin that allows you basically to set up donations and crowdfunding type situations on your own website. There's actually a variety of those. So the idea is that, yes, we can do crowdfunding on our own websites as well nowadays. But the benefit of using places like Indiegogo and Kickstarter is that there are still people who are patrons of the art, and they go and look for projects that they can support, and these marketplaces are a great way. And you'll find that people may do a project on Indiegogo, then bounce over to Kickstarter, then go to their own website as well. So there's a few ways of mixing these things up.
And the good thing I've seen on Indiegogo a lot, even Kickstarter, a lot of entrepreneurs who are inventing things will start off to get their seed money to create their project. And I've seen projects like that made it big, that are really doing well now. So yeah, it's an amazing platform.
And that is so true, because while they're there doing their test marketing on some of the the crowdfunding campaigns, they're literally able to see, oh, is there interest in this? Is there interest in this product by just having it there on the crowdfunding campaign? And while you're here, can you talk as well about the Jobs Act and how that is related to crowdfunding, how they're connected right now?
Yes. So basically, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, as we mentioned, these are crowdfunding platforms where people can come here and explore all sorts of a variety of projects. And traditionally, the way these can raise big or small amounts of money. Okay, if we look at most funded, for example, and some of these numbers are really amazing. I mean, $5 million, $2 million. But the thing is, so for the people who donate on these crowdfunding sites, mostly what they receive back are the swag that may come with it. These may be promotional items. So, for example, every campaign is going to give a little bit of promotional items or something to incentivize, magnets, T-shirts, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to have, build those costs in. But there's another form of marketplaces that are out here now, and they're called equity markets. And these basically allow individuals who are everyday people to invest in projects just like this, but they're micro investments. So you may be able to invest $10 into a movie project or $100 or a few $100s into a movie project, but it's an actual investment now. So that as that company or as that venture starts to generate income, you get money back. You are an actual investor. Here in these crowdfundings, you're a supporter. These are donations. But in the case of the equity funding sites, and we're going to go into that much more on Saturday because it's a whole movement that's going on. Originally, it was initiated by something called the Jobs Act, which President Obama passed. And the Jobs Act allowed small businesses to raise up to $1 million in venture capital. Now they can raise up to $5 million. And the key thing is, though, before the Jobs Act, in order to be you had to be what they called an accredited investor, meaning you had to have a certain amount of cash liquidity and a certain amount of net worth in order to legally invest in certain type of projects. However, with the Jobs Act and these equity markets, now anyone can invest in some of these ventures, and so there's been some very successful stories. There's a sister named Dawn Dixon, and I've had the pleasure of watching her build her business, Popcom, and she's raised $2 million using these equity marketplaces in a set of 2 different rounds, and she's on the way to raising some more, so there's some great successes, and we'll go into that some more on Saturday.
I remember Spike did Get on the Bus, I think. One of the movies, remember?
Yeah, it was that vampire movie.
Okay. I remember. So it's not just startup people. It's everybody is really using it to accomplish their goals. Yeah.
Yes. It was one of these. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, Spike Lee did. He's successful. And again, the idea here is that if you successfully raise the money, then in this case, you have funded your project without giving up equity and ownership in your project, and that is one of the major advantages. I wish I could find that the Spike Lee one, but yes, that's one of the major advantages is that is that you own it. You have the money you need to make it. In some cases, the money you need to promote it, but you own it, and you don't have to negotiate the same way as you have to do with other investors.
Right. It is. And that's the other thing. I mean, we talk about investors. I mean, you are blessed if you can get an angel investor, to come to your project and rescue you. But there are venture capitalists. If you're not in the know of them, a lot of times it's what you're doing and the type of project you're doing that may spark an investor's interest. And I don't even know. I mean, would you know even how to get to an angel investor?
Absolutely. Dear, can you pull up the screen, please, right here?
Sure.
Because there's some people who just want to invest.
All right. So if you're interested in going the route of angel investors, one of the best places to start is angel.co. Now, this is a community that is a combination of startup entrepreneurs and investors who come together to vet each other for different projects. There is a wealth of research and homework that could be done up in here. And then there's also other things that you can find out about incubators and things like that. So yes, if you are interested. Now, again, you have to know that this world of angel investors, venture capitalists, it's a multi-staged project. And there's a reason that there's a show called Shark Tank.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like a Shark Tank. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a reason there's a show called Shark Tank. Because these entrepreneurs know that if they are able to spot opportunities early and get in there early, then they're able to get undervalued investments. And now and as one investor told me once, so Maxie, $500,000 from one person and $500 million from another person is not the same, depending what else they bring to the table, other than just the money. What experience do they bring? What connections do they bring? What resources do they bring? So yes, you can go over here, angel.co, and begin to explore this world. Another website, if you want to explore the world of investors and entrepreneurs, is Crunchbase. And Crunchbase basically keeps track of venture capital deals as they occur. So any company that you're thinking about doing business with, if it's a startup company, you can come up over here and you can find out about their background. You can find what money they've taken and distribute. This is the great place, again, to explore the world of venture capital organizations, companies that are being funded by venture capital, and the stages at which they're having to go to in order to build their ventures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot out there. I know with me though, I don't like having the old people nothing.
So let's go back to that.
I don't like having the old people nothing and them coming after me. I don't.
Yes.
So in the grants, you don't have to do all that. But the venture capitalists, you have to have a kick-ass project,
and you're indebted.
You know you're gonna make money, or you're gonna invent and don't make money, so you're not, going in the hole.
So when you got ready to start SABIF, the San Antonio Black International Film Festival, what was your approach, Ada, from the idea stage to getting your first funding?
I'm one of those crazy people. I have I have these visions and dreams. Oh, this will work. Oh, this will work. So I really I'm the type of person that jumps off the cliff and there's no safety net. That's my craziness. So with me, it was just coming back home, coming back to San Antonio and knowing that there was a need for Black film to be represented and to be people to be exposed to it. So, connecting with like minds. I mean, the first thing was just having an informational meeting. Hey, called together with a few folks that I had met, come together, meet at the library, and let's talk. Pitch or propose what you want to do. And people buy into it. That's half the battle. And when you have a few people that buy into what you're envisioning, and that really kind of propels you forward.
What did you have at that point for your first meeting? Did you have a handout, a flyer, a plan? How had you structured your idea to present it to folks?
It was just pitching, really talking. I don't know if I had a agenda or not, but it was just having a pitch. I mean, this is something that I've always wanted to do. Even if I was in DC, sometimes going back to these smaller towns, these smaller markets. Coming from DC, Blackness is everywhere. But when you come back to these smaller towns and smaller cities, you're not even thought about. You're just you're not there. So, coming back and just seeing that the need is there, you just do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. So connecting with like minds was one. And then once people bought into it, it was okay, boom, let's plan this. Let's plan the launch, and then let's plan the festival. So it was we just moved forward with it. How did you raise your first dollar for the San Antonio Black International Film Festival, and what did you apply those first dollars to? So we had people from our initial informational meeting. I mean, they were down to pitch in money. I think we had money just minimal, but $10 a month to kind of get us started. Then we got a graphic artist to design the logo, and from there was going out to reach out to partners. Okay, so who's interested in partnering with us? Who feels that this need is worthy to be fulfilled? So going to venues, because you gotta hold it somewhere. So going to venues and establishing relationships with particular people that own venues. So we had the Carver Community Cultural Center. There was a relationship with the Texas Institute of Culture for our first year. So for nice big venues, pitching what you want to do, the importance of it, the potential to get, into the audience, to draw an audience to it. So people also felt that, hey, this was something that they wanted to buy into. And so from getting the venues to even getting the filmmakers on board. I mean, this brother here, Charles Murray, I mean, I called him to be for our opening night film, looking for opening night film. Hey, giving my sob story. Hey, we need an opening night film, and I saw your film. This, and he graciously came aboard. I mean, let us do his film. So it's all about presenting yourself in a way that piques people's interest in what you're doing, and also showing that there is a need that needs to be fulfilled. It's a worthy need. And you just kind of build from there. You keep trying to establish these relationships that will support what you're doing, that have already their own networks that they can bring in to support what you're doing. And so it was just all a combination of things that just gelled, and like bringing on Super Live Stream, coming to you all saying, hey, we need somebody to build our platform. I got X, Y, and Z. You all were gracious enough to go and do things and help us build this platform and teach our crew. So yeah, it's just connecting with like-minded people, with people that have a passion for what you're envisioning, what you're doing, and just helping you to bring it to life.
Well, but I think there's some capabilities that you have that you may not even be aware of that I've noticed have always been important in these works that you do. Mm-hmm. There's administrative skills, communication skills, and fiscal management skills that I've noticed over these years. Can you talk a little bit about those things and the roles that those have played? Because there's plenty of community organizations that can get people excited and people pitch into the pot, but someone has to manage that pot. And that pot has to be spent, in the way it was intended, and then accounted for later. Can you talk a little bit about those systems and techniques that you've used?
Well, one thing, Maxie, I think, I'm not the brightest person, whatever. I like to surround myself with people that know more than me. I'm never intimidated by that. I don't care how old or how young you are. If you know more than me, and I can learn from you and help and grow, we can grow this baby together, then welcome aboard. Come on board.
Jeff Lee said the exact same thing at the BET reunion. He said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He said, I just hire people who are smarter than me. And he said it again.
It's true. It's true. I don't know jack about technology. You all do. You all are smarter than me. And you're so gracious with what you have. I don't like being around selfish, stingy people. That's not in my orbit. Yeah. I share. I expect to get back what I give, and that's not an irrational expectation. No, it is I don't not. Think, even in relationships or friends or whatever. If you're doing everything and they're not giving anything, then it's not even in a marriage or relationship, anything. You've got to have. It may not be an equal footing in people's investment, but at least the interest and the willingness to work and learn and grow. Yes. And we never stop growing and learning. I mean, that's just if you do, then you're stagnant. I've never been one to be stagnant. So it's just and I learned a lot being in that basement, learning when working on Sankofa. I learned a hell of a lot because it's like when you don't have money, you do everything. So. I noticed the difference about independent filmmakers and Hollywood filmmakers. I didn't know it at the time because I was so used to learning and doing casting, doing funding, doing granting, doing travel services, doing everything. And so when I worked on a Hollywood set, when I was, a young PA working on a Hollywood set, I was like, oh, they have a lighting department. Oh, they have a department. Oh, they have a grip department. Oh, they have a craft services department. They had different departments with heads doing that. We had to learn everything. As an independent filmmaker, you got to know every goddamn thing that's going on. You may not be an expert in it, but you have some knowledge of what each department is doing, so that if you got to jump and do it, or call somebody you know that has an inkling of what the ability to do it, then you do it.
Yes.
And it is very much guerrilla filmmaking. It's very much guerrilla survival in anything that you're doing. And you also have to just believe in your product, believe in what you're doing, and believe in yourself. You know, it sounds corny, but you got to believe in yourself, because you can't be an insecure person, you know, with issues trying to lead other people. You just can't. And
so what action items would you give to someone who may be watching, who has an idea, a project? They may have a script if they're shooting a narrative. They may have an outline if they're doing a documentary. What is an actionable funding item that you would recommend for them?
I would say start with what's around you, because, you know, we always think funding. Funding is not always money. Like I said, funding could be a building or a location to shoot. And that's in-kind funding. You know what I'm saying? There's an in-kind aspect to funding where it's an exchange. Someone's giving you this for that, or they're just giving it to you to be nice. And when we were shooting Sankofa, you know, in the cane fields in Jamaica, when someone said, "Here, you can use this guest house," that just not having to rent that cornfield, that sugarcane field, and that guest house, that was what, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000.
Yes.
That, you know, was given to us, but it was in kind. You know, we didn't have to put out for it. We didn't have to buy it. We didn't have to pay for a rental every day. So I don't always think of, oh, I don't have it. I don't have enough money. Just say, hey, I'm doing this project. I mean, even if you don't have any money to feed people on your set, connect with a burger joint or a pizza joint or a local food place that, you know, has some nutritional value. And say, hey, I'm shooting a film. I can give you a credit in exchange for this. Or, you know, it's all about trying to figure out what will get you what you need to achieve your goal.
That's real.
Yeah, it's not
so well said.
Money. I mean, I've never had no goddamn money, and you know, I've been able to travel. I've been able to do all kind of shit. I mean, I was doing.
You had hustle. You have always had
hustle. It's, you know, it's a legal hustle, but it's a hustle. And it's nothing that, and you want to hustle with things that don't compromise your beliefs, don't compromise your morals or your values,
your integrity.
You know, you don't want to turn a trick to get something done and that ain't your values. You want to do things that are within you know, your convictions, your values, your morals, and you know, just learn how to really trust what you're doing and believe in what you're doing, and pull in like I said, the like minds, the resources, the people that can help you achieve your goals, period.
And before we wrap up, I'd say the actionable item that I would recommend for people is to learn how to budget your projects. You know, it's to learn how to talk with people and get real estimates for the cost and the time involved in these things in order to make them happen. You know, and so this is part one of our panel discussion on funding. So Ada, can you tell us a little bit about our guest who will be here on Saturday's discussion?
So I'm actually pulling two long-term sisters that I've worked with in the trenches of life, of experiences. We have Sandra Radley, who is just an awesome organizer. She's held executive and management positions over her lifetime. And the latest thing she did was American Masters PBS special, something women. She's gonna kill me. I think the title, but Unruly Women or something like that. It was on PBS this year. But she's gonna be joining us, as well as Kay Shaw, who again is an awesome organizer. She started as a grassroots organizer. She was the brainstorm behind all of the Sankofa marketing, creation, branding, everything. She's worked as a director for the National Programming Consortium, which is now Black Public Media. And she's also worked with the NAACP. So she's done just a wealth of stuff. But I've learned a lot from those sisters in terms of organizing. Like, there's somebody, you say you have a project, they're gonna like pick it down to the bones in terms of the logistics of how to accomplish that, who to bring on, Even organizing schedules, because I went from Sankofa, I started booking the filmmaker, Haile Garima. And so just the techniques that I learned on how to set up schedules and itineraries and just the organizing, administration, the coordinating aspects, I learned a hell of a lot. Like I said, surrounding yourself with like-minded people.
That's what I was referring to,
Harder than you.
but when I talked about your abilities, your administration, your communication, those skills that I've seen over and over again that have helped you organize these projects, absolutely.
Yeah. So it starts with, I was just a little intern coming out of Howard, but when I was at Howard, I did do executive producer things for not executive producer, senior producer for Screen Scene, which was a local magazine format at Howard's yes station. So just early on, just kind of like if you're young, go into internships and get under somebody who can direct you and teach you just the trade. And then from there, you take a little bit here, take a little bit there, and then you develop your own thing. And then that will allow you to be able to work not only on your own projects, but in bigger, larger projects where you're departmentalized, like the Hollywood departments, where everything's departmentalized. But knowing and seeing and touching everything and being a part of everything on productions or even creation of products or like you all do, you're teaching courses on how to do websites. I mean, learning all that stuff is very important so that you have the skills and the knowledge and expertise to not only do it yourself, but to know the people that you're bringing on know what they should or shouldn't be doing.
Yes,
how to manage. You learn how to manage the even if you're not doing it yourself.
Yes. We have some.
Oh, go ahead. No, so it's just for me. It's just part of the growth, part of the path. Everything that I learned and all the people that I connected with and bonded with in DC, I'm able to bring those folks to San Antonio Black International Film Festival and be on panels and help me in areas that I need to kind of expose people to things that they may not have been exposed to being in San Antonio as opposed to being in DC. There's a big difference there in terms of cultural knowledge and expertise on things. So it's bringing those relationships forward. And that's a critical part of not only funding your project, but advancing your project and making it better.
Yes, so important. And we want to say to the comments that are coming in from social media, thank you, Cynthia B. White. Thank you, enjoying this info. And Dion Flee Lee says, love it. Been tuned in from the start. Ada is awesome. And yes, she is. Yes.
Thank you all.
Yes.
There's residencies too. Like sometimes filmmakers need support, or not even filmmakers, writers, authors, get into residencies where they will pay for you to come and learn and create in in other spots of the world. Like if you got a lot of distractions at home, you need to get away, apply for residencies. There's a really good resource, womenartsmediacoalition.org, womenartsmediacoalition.org. They have monthly, get on their newsletter, because they have monthly funding and residency information that you can apply for. So they'll, and then like I said, National Black Programming, Black Public Media now, Black Public Media, very supportive. So check out the places that are local to you and the organizations that are local to you and the specific subject matter or topics or whatever that you can connect with that may be good sources on helping you or connecting with you, co-sponsoring with you, partnering with you to get your projects done.
All right. And so again, there's other questions and comments coming in, but this is just part one. And on Saturday, we'll have additional information. Dear, before we wrap out now, is there anything? What's up, Ardell? Thank you for joining us.
Yes, welcome.
Dear, is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap out today?
Yes, absolutely. I want to say thank you to everyone who's joining us live right now. Yeah. You can also tune in on Saturday at 12 noon Pacific for this full panel. So excited about that information. And also, if you have a question about technology or how to build the websites or any additional questions about the live streams and web video, we'd like to welcome you to Super Live Producers. You can go to superliveproducers.com. We go live every Sunday at 2 p.m. and every Friday at 11 a.m.
And we thank everyone who's been supporting our initiatives with these live streams and these projects. And again, you know, this is all just the beginning of all of this. You know, I mean, look at how many of us are now having live streaming, Zoom, podcasting, e-learning, e-commerce websites, all these things that are part of our daily lives now that just 9 months ago, 11 months ago weren't. You know, so this technology is evolving fast. The business models are evolving fast. We will continue to be here to teach and share. If you'd like to check out our program, visit us at superliveproducers.com. I'm Maxie Collier, my wife Schatar Safira Collier, homegirl Ada Babino. Thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our Friday regularly scheduled Super Live Producers training session and our special part 2 of this program on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we'll be back again for additional training lessons.
Bring your brown bag lunch.
Yes, exactly. See you there.